Most people are aimless, floundering, allowing the winds of the world to guide them to wherever it wishes. Most people lack control over their own lives. Are we free or are we determined? The evidence seems to point to the latter. This is an uncomfortable thing to admit for people. We like to believe that free will exists and that we can change at any time. But how true is this in reality? From where I'm sitting, the vast majority of people never change. Just because they can doesn't mean they will. And as creatures of habit, change is hard. It's overwhelming, challenging, and if given the choice, we'll always choose the familiar. I heard a saying a few weeks ago which really rang true for me. It goes as follows: people only change when they have to, not need, have. When you think about it, have is much stronger than need. Plenty of people need to do something. Unhealthy people need to get healthy. People with self-destructive habits need to develop good ones. But just because they need to doesn't mean they will. When you have to change, there's no other choice. You're backed up against the wall and can only do one thing. It's a shame that many will never change until they have to, but it makes total sense. Modernity has made the game of life far too easy. There's simply too much comfort to experience genuine hardship. Even people in the Western world who live in poverty own plasma TVs and have internet connections. It's very difficult to change when survival is virtually ensured. So what can you do? How can you change? The answer is simple. You need a mission. A mission takes precedence over everything. It doesn't matter how irrational or delusional, it simply must be completed. Men who achieve great things had seismic missions, missions that drove them to total obsession. By having this kind of force in your life, change will be imposed upon you. You won't have a choice. In order to complete your mission, you'll need to adapt to the growing pains. Your mission will force you to rise. If not, you'll need to live with the eternal regret of never trying to achieve it. The great fictional depiction of this is in Moby Dick. Captain Ahab wouldn't stop until he slayed that whale. The whale was elusive and couldn't be killed. In return, it left a permanent mark on Ahab by biting off his leg. This isn't just a good story, it's symbolic. Ahab had a permanent itch that could never be scratched. He's a representation of most men who have ludicrous goals. These men of excellence were driven by a force far more powerful than them. This is why we have all the bizarre creations that exist today. Even the man who made YouTube was manically driven by obsession to complete his own heroic mission. Without a mission, you don't get a Google. Without a mission, you don't get a Usain Bolt. And without a mission, the world around you ceases to exist. Having a mission in your life isn't a luxury. In many cases, it's a curse. While the majority of people may flounder around aimlessly, at least they're ignorant in their bliss. In contrast, the few who are engulfed by their obsessions are impossible to satisfy. It doesn't matter how successful they may be. If they don't complete their specific mission, they will never be happy. It's an endless slog that leads absolutely nowhere. The great tragedy of this condition gets worse. Upon completing their mission, they're left with an irrepressible feeling of emptiness. Decades of dedication led up to this moment, only to be left with nothingness. Having a heroic mission may force you to reach the pinnacles of excellence, but it will also lead to a lot of pain. Do you think Michael Jordan was happy after winning his first title? Perhaps momentarily. But as soon as the champagne bottles were empty and the party had ended, the man was left with an intense come-down. A come-down which couldn't be quenched until he won another one. No time to rest, no time to enjoy the moment. As soon as the mission was completed, his focus went straight to the next one. For people like this, there is no time to pause. The striving never stops, and it never will. This way of being can be exhausting, but at the same time, it's by far the most rewarding. Thanks for listening.